Do you believe in devils? People who act on their own desires, causing harm to others, might be called devils. Is there really a way to stand against such devils? My name is Scarlett. Looking back, time has flown by so quickly. My daughter Christy, whom I bore and raised, is now over 20 and has decided to get married. Now that I think about it, I was about the same age as Christy is now when I met and married my husband Matthew. A blissful marriage with the love of my life. Back then, I was oblivious to the devil lurking in the shadows of my happiness. This devil was my husband's mother, my mother-in-law. And this devil bore a human name, Marilyn. Scarlett and Christy are here to serve me, to take care of my life. It's all about money, cash, hand it over quickly. When did the devil's cry echo, I wonder? My dad was a lawyer who worked for the socially weak and believed in justice. I have an older brother, George, who admired our dad and aspired to become a lawyer himself, to contribute to the rescue of the underprivileged like him. Influenced by George, I also harbored a desire to do such work. One day, a TV documentary about people fighting for workers' rights and better working conditions caught my eye. These people were labor relations specialists. Learning this, I developed a keen interest in this profession. To become a labor relations specialist, legal studies were essential, so I set my sights on a law school and dedicated myself to studying. George had already made it smoothly into law school and was on track to pass the bar exam. Sometimes I resented not being as smart as George, but I poured my best efforts into my studies. Thanks to my hard work, I was accepted into university, where I learned about law and gradually approached becoming a labor relations specialist. Maybe because I wasn't brilliant as George, the study of law and university exams were quite challenging, but I persevered. Eventually, I graduated, obtained my degree, and got the necessary qualifications. After graduation, I landed a job at a law firm. The CPA exam I passed in high school and the CFP qualification I obtained during college were closely related to the work and laws handled by a labor relations specialist, which seemed to work in my favor during the hiring process. Gaining experience in my job, I realized the societal importance of my work and led a fulfilling life. In the office, there was a senior named Matthew, from whom I learned a great deal. Matthew is earnest, has a strong sense of justice, and above all, he is passionate about his work. At first, our relationship was that of mere respectful colleagues, but as we worked together, I was increasingly drawn to his kindness and reliability. In other words, I began to fall in love with Matthew. And he too started to see me, not just as a junior colleague, but as someone special. Just like water flows from high to low, our relationship naturally progressed into dating and eventually led to a promise of spending a lifetime together. When I shared the news of considering marriage with Matthew, Mom clapped her hands in joy, and Dad, while showing a smile with mixed feelings, blessed us. George, who by then had finished his legal clerkship and become a lawyer, congratulated us too. Smiling besides George was his wife, my sister-in-law. Matthew is an only child, and his father passed away the year before last, leaving him with his mother, Marilyn, at their family home. Before our marriage, a family meeting was arranged. The attendees were, of course, Matthew and I, Marilyn, and both my parents, along with George and his wife. Marilyn, who would become my mother-in-law, is 55 years old, but looks younger for her age. Maybe because of this, her makeup seemed a bit heavy and flashy. But that's a matter of personal taste, and it wasn't excessively flashy or concerning. She was always smiling, repeatedly expressing her happiness about her son's marriage. As greetings ended and conversation flowed, my mom said, "It must be lonely since your husband passed away." "Oh no, not at all. I've actually found freedom in being alone, and I have Matthew with me, so I'm not lonely," Marilyn replied nonchalantly. I thought that would be the end of it, but Marilyn continued. "My husband left a decent fortune, so I don't have any financial troubles. I even invest some of it and get returns. Even if things get tough, Matthew earns quite well as a labor relations specialist, and Scarlett does too, so I have nothing to worry about. There was something off about the way Marilyn spoke with such ease. My parents exchanged glances, and George slightly tilted his head. Marilyn seemed oblivious to their reactions and kept talking. I hear Scarlett's father and brother are also lawyers, earning quite well. It's an honor to become relatives with such people. Mother, what are you saying? That's rude. Matthew interjected. With a cool smile, she responded. Rude? How so? I'm just admiring how great that is. I'm not saying anything bad. I'm happy to become relatives with a wealthy family. I'm just honestly expressing my joy. Why are you happy about that? It's none of your business, Mother. After all, if my dear son and his wife ever face any troubles, they could help us out, right? It's reassuring for a parent. If the son and his wife are well off, they can lend a hand if something happens to me. It's a relief for me, you know. What she's saying seems off. Brown, Vivian, I apologize. My mother might be nervous and saying things that are not quite right. If she's made you feel uncomfortable, please accept my apologies. Matthew interjected, wiping sweat from his brow and trying desperately to smooth over the situation. I tried to help. Marilyn, it's okay. We plan to live a stable and well-planned life, so we won't face any troubles. Right. Sorry for the unnecessary worry. Yes, just work hard and earn well. However, Marilyn's response was odd too, leaving me at a loss for words, and I froze. Marilyn seemed oblivious to the atmosphere, happily sipping her coffee. That evening, back at home, my family expressed their discomfort about Marilyn. Is that mother-in-law okay? Is that just her personality? Or is she saying those things deliberately? If it's deliberate, what's her intent? I don't know. She seems to be a completely different type from us. It's incomprehensible to talk about money and wealth in such a setting. Is that normal for her? The family meeting, including my sister-in-law, was filled with questions. Actually, after that family meeting, Marilyn said something to me. As the meeting ended and everyone started to leave, I happened to be the last one with Marilyn. Hey, Scarlett, you're going to live with me after you get married, right? Let's discuss living expenses and housework. It'll be a help for me. After all, Matthew is a boy and can't do any housework. I had never considered living with Marilyn. She is still healthy and not of an age to be considered elderly. I wanted to start my married life with just Matthew, and I thought that was only natural. I didn't tell my parents or George about this interaction, but I mentioned Marilyn's words to Matthew the next day. I never thought about living with Marilyn right after getting married. You're not considering that, are you, Matthew? Of course not. My wish is to build a life just with you after our marriage. And Scarlett, I'm telling you this because it's you, but I can't wait to leave that house. I understood Matthew's feelings, but when I asked him why he was so eager to leave his family's home, he said, You might have felt it during the family meeting, but my mother has an abnormal obsession with money. It was just as my family had suspected. She often demands money from me, saying she raised me, and even specifies a substantial amount as rent every month. Matthew didn't understand why Marilyn was so fixated on money. It might be something she was born with, he thought. As I'm starting a new family with you, I think it's better to keep some distance from my mother. Actually, I want to. Later, Matthew clearly told Marilyn that we would not be living with her. Thus, we could start our sweet married life together in our own place. However, I would later find out that Matthew hadn't told me everything. As we both worked, we decided to contribute equally to our living expenses and save the rest. That was our plan, but the amount Matthew was supposed to put into our joint bank account was consistently short. When I asked him about it, his answer was shocking. Sorry, I've had to send money to Mom, and there are some essential expenses for myself that I can't cut down, so I can't fully contribute to our joint account. Matthew, who had lived at home until marriage, had been depositing a significant amount of money at Marilyn's behest each month. He thought leaving home would end this, but Marilyn insisted on continuing the payments under the guise of remittances. Unconvinced, I decided to confront Marilyn and visited my in-laws' home. Marilyn, I heard that Matthew is sending you money, but isn't that strange? You're well and have father-in-law's inheritance, so why do you need money from Matthew? But Marilyn acted as if it was the most natural thing. What are you talking about? Matthew lived here and paid money every month. I intended to receive money from both after your marriage, but since you refused to live with me, he still owes his duty as a son. In fact, I'm only asking for 1.5 people's share, not 2, so you should be grateful. I couldn't comprehend how she could think like that. Such arbitrary rules, and what duties are you talking about? A son should give money to his mother. That's common sense. Even a son's wife should contribute to her mother-in-law. Don't you know that? Such common sense does not exist. When I firmly denied it, Marilyn's tone changed completely. Marilyn erupted. You ungrateful fool! I was nice to you, and now you've gotten too comfortable. I won't hold back anymore. You married my son. I will thoroughly teach you what it means to be a wife. Her eyes narrowed, and although not quite split, her mouth twisted into an ugly shape as she hurled insults at me. I was stunned by this unexpected change and felt a surge of fear. I don't remember much after that. I fled the in-laws' house as if escaping. Back home, I told Matthew what happened. But as I spoke, the fear and shock I had felt resurfaced, and tears overflowed. My mother has an abnormal obsession with money, Matthew explained, and she's become aggressive toward anything that doesn't align with her wishes. Her sudden shift from calm to rage is shocking. Matthew said that from now on, he would handle things, and that I should avoid Marilyn as much as possible. Indeed, I didn't want to have anything to do with Marilyn, but I wondered if it was fair to leave Matthew to deal with her alone. I don't know what discussions took place between Matthew and Marilyn afterward, but Marilyn stopped bothering me. Matthew didn't explain in detail, but it was clear to me. The amount Matthew was sending Marilyn each month had increased. Life seemed calm on the surface, but it wasn't entirely peaceful. Marilyn would regularly come over and talk to Matthew. When I tried to intervene, she would angrily berate me. I have nothing to discuss with you. Don't interfere in conversations with my son, you fool. This happened repeatedly, and Marilyn always left looking satisfied. Matthew wouldn't share the details, but it was easy to guess he was giving her money. It was frustrating to see Matthew's weak stance towards Marilyn, but seeing his distressed state made me want to protect him. Yet I was at a loss for what to do, and couldn't discuss it with my parents or George. During this time, I became pregnant with Matthew's child and gave birth to our beloved daughter, Christy. My parents and George and his wife were overjoyed and celebrated the birth. George and his wife, having no children themselves, shared our happiness as if it were their own. Marilyn, too, was thrilled about her first grandchild, but for entirely different reasons. Such a win! We've got a future earner. A boy might earn more, but a girl can marry rich, then you're set. You'll get a hefty celebration gift from Scarlett's family, right? That's like a windfall. Lucky us. Marilyn only saw her grandchild as a means to gain money. Hey, give me the celebration gift money. It's a happy occasion after all. Marilyn, for some reason, started to demand money from us after we had our child. What do you mean? Normally, we should receive a celebration gift from you, Marilyn, right? What are you talking about? Listen, you two became parents because I gave birth to Matthew. It's because of me that this celebration event happened. So, I should be the one to receive a celebration gift. Don't you understand? Or are you just stupid? She spouted this nonsensical logic with a detestable face and then proceeded to extort money from us. There are too many episodes with Marilyn to narrate them all here. Even as our family suffered under Marilyn's manipulation, our daughter Christy grew up healthy. Having been subjected to Marilyn's influence since she was young, Christy deeply detested her. Our life could have been happy with just the three of us, excluding Marilyn. However, When Christy was 13, tragedy struck our family. Matthew had to undergo a re-examination after a health check, which revealed a significantly advanced malignancy. He passed away after just 3 months of battling the disease. After the solemn funeral, Marilyn's words were jarring. I expected Matthew to contribute more, but his early passing was unexpected, a real wrench in my plans. But I adapt well. Now, Scarlett, as Matthew's wife, you must serve me. And Christy, grow up fast and marry rich. I'm looking forward to it. Matthew had been a barrier protecting us from Marilyn, but now that he was gone, I felt the full brunt of the onslaught. Marilyn was targeting not just me, but Christy as well. About 3 months after Matthew's funeral, Marilyn suddenly showed up. I'm getting bored. I've come to collect a substantial amount today. You can afford it. Matthew's inheritance must have come in. Hand it over quickly. Matthew's inheritance is meant for Christy's future. Why should I give it to you? Matthew's inheritance rightly belongs to his mother, me. It's absurd that it goes to the wife and child instead, according to some ridiculous law. So I'll take it directly from you. I have that right. You, as his wife, must take care of me, and Christy has to look after her grandmother. That's common sense in society. You've squeezed enough money from Matthew already. Despite having father-in-law's inheritance, you've received more than enough from us. I countered Marilyn's absurd logic with reason. Then Marilyn, in her typical fashion, started ranting and stormed into Christy's room. Christy, your mother doesn't understand. You give me what's owed instead. Marilyn screamed and grabbed Christy's piggy bank, smashing it on the floor. The piggy bank shattered, scattering coins everywhere. Marilyn picked up the money with a terrifying expression. Christy stood frozen, trembling at the unbelievable scene. I was too stunned to intervene or even speak. After stuffing the collected money into her pocket, Marilyn threatened, I'll let you off with this for today, but if you don't transfer the usual amount to the bank account within 3 days, who knows what might happen? Christy needs to grow up and lay bigger eggs, but if necessary, we can start now. Well, never mind, just remember, you and Christy exist to serve me, to take care of my needs, my lifestyle. It's all about money, cash. Hand it over quickly. She left as quickly as she had arrived, like a storm passing through. It reminded me of a phrase from a popular TV show theme song from the past. I decided to focus solely on protecting Christy. I dodged Marilyn's unreasonable demands while waiting for the right moment, accepting them when necessary. And so, about 7 years passed. Why didn't you invite me to my granddaughter's wedding? Marilyn suddenly called one day, furious. You're failing as a son's wife. Who is this? I don't have any children. What? I don't understand what you're saying. I'm coming over now, so you better change your attitude and wait. True to her word, Marilyn came and started berating me. Why wouldn't you invite me to the wedding of my cash cow? I heard the groom is quite wealthy. You should greet me properly now, or it'll be troublesome later. As I said earlier, I don't have a daughter, and who are you? You should be a stranger to me. Marilyn looked confused, unable to comprehend my words. My aim was to protect Christy, to ensure she grew up and achieved happiness, skillfully evading Marilyn until then. Now Christy is married and found happiness. First, to protect her, I asked George to help with what you might call an evacuation. I had sent Christy to a safe zone, out of Marilyn's reach. George and his wife readily cooperated, and Christy's evacuation lasted nearly a year. George and his wife, having no children of their own, cherished Christy as if she were their own daughter. When Christy turned 15, they made a proposal to formally adopt Christy. If Christy remained my daughter, Marilyn, as her grandmother, would continue to haunt her. By severing my legal ties with Christy, Marilyn's connection would also be cut off. Although the legal relationship between Marilyn and us had ended with Matthew's death, Adopting Christy as George's daughter would further sever ties with Marilyn. I accepted George's proposal. I couldn't let Christy continue to be preyed upon by Marilyn. Even as George's daughter, Christy would always be my beloved child, and George's family had genuinely adored her. They would surely bring her happiness. I bided my time, skillfully handling Marilyn's demands. Christy's marriage marked a turning point. As planned, we didn't invite Marilyn to the wedding. We treated her as non-existent, cleanly cutting off all ties. Marilyn might rage upon finding out, but that didn't matter. She seemed to understand that my connection with Christy had been severed. "How dare you do such a ridiculous thing?" Marilyn shouted in anger, but another voice echoed back. "You've caused enough suffering for Scarlett and Christy. You'll pay for it." I had called George before Marilyn arrived. There is a duty to care for parents and their financial needs in the family, but only if they are truly in need. Marilyn, our mother-in-law, was not in financial distress. She had been extorting money for her own pleasures. We had recorded nearly all of Marilyn's abusive language and unreasonable demands. We would use this as evidence for a damage claim. Let me reiterate, George's a lawyer. So is Dad. Marilyn had no chance of winning. "I don't have any money because I failed in investments. That's why I was relying on you and Christy." Not only had Marilyn failed in investments, but she had also been gambling and was in debt. Initial success in both investments and gambling led to her downfall, and she kept losing thereafter. Beginner's luck can be terrifying indeed. With debts and an impending lawsuit, Marilyn's prospects for a decent life were grim. There stood a pitiable, weeping old woman. I felt liberated from the devil, light and free. As a labor relations specialist, I want to return to my dream of helping workers, just as I had envisioned. It had been a long, difficult journey, but it was also a time when I gained the treasure that is Christy. Now that my daughter has grown up, I want to use my time effectively for myself.